This Guy's Garage. Like and subscribe.
Quick question. Say Pfizer, have you released anywhere in the world access to the documents to elected officials in committee or otherwise?
Thank you for the question. Pfizer has not.
We are not asking for these documents to be released. They're going to be held in a separate room for us to view without access to any ability to take pictures or document this. I'm looking at the letters sent to us, to the committee from the American Chamber of Commerce in Canada, the Canadian Chamber, Biotech, Montreal Chamber, Innovative Medicines Canada. All wrote letters to the committee implying that we were going to publish these or disclose these letters. Did Pfizer, did any of you contact these organizations and ask them to contact the committee with what appears to be very misleading information?
Thank you for the question. We work very closely with some of these entities.
Sorry, I didn't ask if you work closely. I just asked, did you contact NASM to write the committee?
We have been in contact. We have not asked anyone to write specifically about this. I think what we're seeing is just...
The reason I ask that is we're not asking to publish these. We're not asking to disclose these. It's to be in a secure location, as Mr. Bedard indicated. I'm just curious, like how many in Canada, for example, or perhaps the US, UK, the EU, procurement officials would have had access to these contracts? Just ballparkish.
I would say in every market where we were working with procurement to sign these contracts, they would have had access.
Ballpark, how many people? 500?
I'm not sure. But
a fair amount.
I can get back to the clerk on this.
Like I've seen contracts that have been leaked: Albania, Brazil, Colombia, Chile, the DR, the European Commission, Peru, USA, UK. Do you have any evidence that shows that those leaked contracts came from politicians or elected officials?
I'm not familiar with all of those instances, but I do know there have been a couple of leaks.
Is there any reason to believe they came from elected officials?
I'm not exactly sure if we know who leaked the information, but Pfizer, in these cases, never voluntarily provided an unredacted contract.
Do you believe that any of these leaks came from elected officials?
I can't answer that, I'm sorry.
Were there any commercial repercussions to these countries in these leaks? Because I've listened to your testimony, I've seen the letters, and they're very implied threats to investment in Canada, etc., if 11 MPs in a private room have access. So all these countries with leaked contracts, and I've got many of them here with me, were there divestment in these countries, similar to what seemed to be implied if the 11 MPs in the room looked at the contracts?
I don't think in any of these cases, I'll speak on Pfizer's behalf, we ever implied that we would divest if a contract was leaked.
The conversations we've had and what letters sent by your advocates have stated very clearly investment is at risk in our country, and yet where they've leaked full contracts, you haven't divested. So it seems like an odd implied threat if 11 MPs were to look at it with zero ability to get these items out would be a threat to investment and development of the pharma industry in Canada, and yet fully leaking the EC one, for example, has
30
no
seconds.
repercussion. Okay. Curious, are all of the contracts, and all open to each of you, do each of you state that it requires the permission of the pharma to release the details of the contract, that each department or each country, Canada, US, requires permission from Pfizer, Moderna to release the contracts or details?
These are two-way contracts signed by both us as well as the Department of Procurement. It is our intent that these are always confidential, and we remain confidentiality throughout.
Witnesses, thanks very much. I just want to put a couple things to bed here. There is zero information on IP or anything in any of these contracts, correct? So any talk about, well, it's IP that we're going to lose out, these are secrets, is misinformation. Lack of response I'll take is that I'm correct there. I want to go back to what I was discussing earlier. I want to look at just some of the comments from, I assume you're all paid members of the various chambers that wrote to us. You know, there's a comment here, 11 MPs in camera looking at these documents, you know, could hurt the business environment stability. Canada. Another one says it could wreck a reputation as a reliable partner in which to do business, worrisome precedent for someone wanting to invest in Canada. Such a decision could erode investor confidence and reputational consequences. So I want to get back to how many leaks have come from Canadian, Government of Canada procurement officials of your contracts? Now, let's just start with Pfizer and Moderna because those are big ones we're dealing with.
Thank you for the question. I am not aware of any leaks that have occurred
There have been
here in Canada.
Yeah, Ms. Coche?
Yeah, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of
Great.
leaks in Canada.
Great, so there's been none from Canada. We've got leaks probably covering 90% of your vaccine business between the US, et cetera. These leaks, which some of them have leaked everything, other mostly, has this adversely affected Pfizer's investment in the US or UK, or Moderna's investment in the US or UK or EU, or has negatively affected the business environment for dealing with them? Simple, quick yes or no, and I think the answer is no, but you can disagree if you wish.
So I'll start. I can't comment on the leaks that have happened in Europe. We are...
But has Moderna said, well, geez, the EC, you leaked your entire thing. We're not investing in any EU countries anymore.
Yeah. What I can see is that Canada is getting the first mRNA manufacturing site from Moderna.
I'm not asking about Canada. Has
So I think
Moderna
it
pulled
speaks-
out investing or divested?
Yeah.
Or anything?
I can speak to what I know, which is that we are investing in Canada because of the very secure, stable, predictable environment that Canada has to offer, and we're not investing everywhere in
Does the EC
Europe.
not have a stable, secure environment?
We're investing in
Is
Canada
Moderna
given
pulling
the
out all of
environment
its
it
investments
offers.
out of the countries that leaked into Canada because MPs cannot see unredacted?
What I'm
And I
talking
think the
about
answer
is
is no. What I'm getting at is this whole argument about, oh, it's going to damage investment in Canada or Pfizer's not going to sell doses to us is a false narrative when probably 90-95% of your customers have leaked full contracts, but there's no negative or adverse effect on their investment. But this narrative that 11 MPs in a guarded room with no phones or copiers or any ability to copy anything is somehow a risk to Canadian investment from Moderna and Pfizer. So just putting that to bed. I'm curious, in one of the contracts we saw from Brazil, and this is for Pfizer, stated Pfizer needed Pfizer's permission to donate any excess vaccines. Has Pfizer ever refused any country wishing to donate any vaccines purchased from Pfizer?
I can't speak on all of the contracts that Pfizer has
Are you
signed
aware of
around
any?
the world in donations. I can't speak about the process here in Canada.
I'm just asking, are you aware of any? Because the reason I ask, the government of Canada, we purchased a lot, but we've also had about $1 billion of vaccines still date that we've had to discard.
30 seconds.
I am curious, Pfizer, again, the Brazil contract, one of the issues is, Brazil had to seek permission to donate to poorer countries or other countries. I'm curious, did Pfizer then perhaps refuse permission for Canada to donate excess vaccines to help out poorer countries abroad?
There is a process in place here in Canada, and it has been exercised for Canada to donate excess doses to other countries. In fact, it was made public that
Pfizer ever refused permission?
Mr. McCauley, I'm afraid
here in
that
Canada, we have not refused permission.
that is the time.
This is not described like a hostile event. We are just trying to understand why we have contracts that have been leaked around the world. We've got all the details. I'm looking at a website, investors.com, where President of Moderna is quoting what the new price they're trying to get out of the U.S. So I'm trying to struggle how we're arguing about hidden price when it's public, because he's going to war with Bernie Sanders tomorrow, with the current price and the future price public, and how this is going to hurt commercial or affect commercial sensitivities. I'm looking at the Pfizer contract leaked from the U.S., and it actually states 1193 that the receiving party, the government, can release confidential information if required under legal or administrative proceedings. So we already know Pfizer has already agreed in the U.S. it will release it if required, as Mr. Bernard says. Like, none of this is up for argument. You were invited here to explain what Mr. Housefather's much, much better explained or asked. Like, why are you opposed to us seeing some of these things? And I'll admit great frustration that we keep asking simple questions, especially around these implied threats to Canada. Ms. Gauthier, you mentioned, we were able to deliver by Christmas Eve, for great profit. We're able to deliver by Christmas Eve because we knew, these were being confidential. As if it was implied that if it wasn't confidential, that they would have withheld these vaccines from Canada. And it's almost farcical when you consider, again, probably 95% of your combined business is in contracts leaked that I have copies of, that you've stated you clearly have not divested from these countries, you've clearly not withdrawn any access to vaccines. So it's almost like you're continuing this charade of the only reason we're doing this out of the goodness of your hearts is because these things are confidential. So I want to address that. But also, again, Pfizer's clearly already stated in their contract that got leaked, but not from Canada, that they could hand it over. But again, it's like we are going to sit under guard of our very able clerk without any phones, without any cameras, without any copiers, without any, I'm sure, pens and papers to copy anything. Like, what is honestly the great concern that 11 of us with zero ability, unless Mr. Housefather will give him points, has a much better memory than a lot of us. He might be able to memorize a couple of these words, but what is, again, the great concern of blocking 11 MPs from seeing this with the great oversight provided in the motion by my colleague from the Bloc? When everything's already been leaked, government of Canada hasn't leaked anything, even though there's 100, 200 public servants have full access to this, whether it's procurement or on the legal side. What is this great pushback that you're spinning, your allies, your paid allies are spinning this great narrative that it's going to be a great disservice to Canada, costing jobs and lives, if 11 MPs sit in a guarded room for a day with zero ability to copy anything? Like, why, again, this pushback and spinning this Hollywood-style narrative, I would say, about the dangers
1 minute, Mr.
of Parliament looking at it? Ms. Sampson, I'll start with you.
Respectfully, I don't think that any of us, especially me, I'll speak on behalf of Pfizer, is trying to downplay the great responsibility that this committee has. So I just want to be very clear about that. I think in this particular case, it is the confidentiality that we expect from all of the contracts that we enter into.
But your confidentiality has been blown by other countries. And your own contract in the States, quote 1193 states, you're happy to provide the information if it's required by law. And it would be required by law. Canada hasn't leaked anything. We would have zero ability to leak anything. And yet, you're spinning this narrative, it's a business thing, you'll lose lives, you'll lose jobs to Canada, you'll lose investment. But that doesn't reflect the facts around the world. So what is, again, the pushback?
Thank you very much. That is